Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I was supposed to come home Thursday night. That was the plan. But the conference in Dallas wrapped up early, so I grabbed an earlier flight, stopped for flowers at a gas station by the highway, and let myself imagine Clara's face when I walked through the door. It had been a while since we had a moment like that, me surprising her. I figured she'd light up. Maybe we'd put Taylor to bed together, eat takeout on the couch, just the two of us. Normal stuff. Stuff I missed. My name is Andrew. I'm 38. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a project manager at a logistics firm. Married 12 years. One daughter, Taylor, age 9. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Just the porch light and a glow in the kitchen window. I smiled to myself and walked up quietly. No need to ring the bell. I had my key. I opened the door as softly as I could. The house smelled like citrus cleaner. I could hear Clara's voice from the kitchen. At first, I thought she was on the phone with her sister. They talk all the time. But something about her tone made me stop. "No, he has no idea," she said. Her voice was tight, hushed. "I wasn't expecting you to call now." I paused in the entryway, my grip tightening around the flowers. The kind of pause where your chest gets heavy, like your body knows something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. Then Clara said something I'll never forget. "We'll figure it out, but not now. He's not supposed to know. Not like this." My throat went dry. I didn't know what it was, but it was enough to send a chill down my spine. I stepped forward, slowly. The hardwood floor creaked under my weight. Her back was to me. She had one hand on the counter, the phone pressed to her ear. I saw her stiffen. "I have to go," she whispered quickly into the phone. Then she turned. The look on her face when she saw me, shock, panic, guilt, all wrapped up in one frozen second. The flowers in my hands suddenly felt ridiculous. "Andrew," she said, "you're home early." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, got an earlier flight. Wanted to surprise you." I held up the flowers. A dumb reflex. She didn't move toward me, just stood there, blinking fast. "Who are you talking to?" I asked. "Oh, just Melissa, my sister. She's freaking out about her tax stuff again. You know how she is." She let out a laugh that didn't match her eyes. "Sounded serious," I said. Clara turned and busied herself at the sink. "It's just been a long day. I didn't expect to be on the phone when you came in." I walked into the kitchen, set the flowers down. "You said something about he doesn't know and not now. That about her taxes too?" She flinched, barely, but I saw it. "Come on, Andrew. Don't be weird. You scared me, that's all." I didn't say anything, just stared at her. She turned the faucet on full blast, even though there weren't any dishes in the sink. Something was off, and she knew I knew it. Taylor's bedroom light flipped on upstairs. Her footsteps padded down the hall. Clara gave me a smile I didn't recognize. "We'll talk later, okay?" But I knew in that moment, whatever this was, it wasn't nothing, and I wasn't imagining it. Clara kept moving around the kitchen like she had something urgent to do, but I could tell she was just trying to avoid standing still. The faucet was still running full blast for no reason. She grabbed a sponge, wiped the same clean corner of the counter twice, then finally turned off the water. "Sorry if I seemed weird," she said, her back still to me. "Melissa's just been spiraling lately. I didn't want to dump that on you the second you walked in." I didn't respond right away. I just watched her. She finally turned and forced a smile. "Seriously, babe, it's nothing. Just family stress." I nodded slowly. "You said he doesn't know. Was that about me?" Clara blinked fast, then tilted her head like she was trying to remember. "Did I? I don't even remember saying that." "You did," I said, keeping my voice level. "And you sounded nervous." She opened the fridge and pulled out a container of strawberries, like that would make the whole thing go away. "Well, I guess I was just trying to calm her down. You know how she gets when things don't go her way." I waited. I told her not to worry about the taxes, that we'd figure it out. She gets paranoid, thinks the IRS is going to show up at her house. Still, I didn't say anything. She looked up and narrowed her eyes. "Andrew, what's going on? I just walked in and heard you talking like something was being hidden from me. Can you blame me for asking?" Clara set the strawberries on the counter a little too hard. "God, it was a phone call. Do I need to explain every single word I say now?" I shook my head. "Number. But don't lie to me either." "I'm not lying." Taylor appeared at the kitchen doorway in her pajamas, hair all messy from sleep. She rubbed her eyes and smiled when she saw me. "Daddy?" My chest eased a little. "Hey, Peanut." She ran over, and I knelt down to hug her. That moment was real, at least, warm and simple. Clara stood off to the side, arms crossed, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. "I heard voices," Taylor said. "Is it morning?" "No, just late," I told her. "Go back to bed soon, okay?" Clara stepped in quickly. "I'll tuck her back in." Taylor kissed my cheek and followed Clara upstairs. I stood alone in the kitchen, still holding the flowers. I set them down on the counter. They looked out of place now, like something meant for a version of tonight that didn't happen. As I wandered toward the living room, something caught my attention, a faint scent I couldn't place at first, sweet, musky, not Clara's usual perfume, not anything I'd smelled around here before. I made a mental note of it. Later, after Taylor was asleep and Clara came back downstairs, I tried again. "Look," I said, "maybe I overreacted. But that call, something about it didn't feel right." Clara didn't sit. She leaned against the wall, arms folded. "Can we just drop it? I'm tired. You're tired. You're making something out of nothing." I nodded slowly, then asked one last thing. "Has Grayson been helping you with stuff while I was gone?" She stiffened, just for a second. "Yeah," she said quickly. "Logistics stuff. Why?" "No reason, just wondering." She turned off the light and headed for the stairs. Something was definitely wrong, and I wasn't the only one who felt it. I couldn't sleep. Clara lay next to me in bed, her breathing slow and steady like nothing was bothering her. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe she was just that good at pretending. Either way, I wasn't buying it. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning above us, counting the turns like that would settle my mind. But all I could think about was the look on Clara's face when I walked in. That frozen second between shock and calculation, like her brain had to scramble to adjust the script. That wasn't the reaction of someone caught off guard. That was the reaction of someone caught. I got up quietly and padded down the hallway. The house was still, dim light from the street filtering through the blinds. I poured myself a glass of water and stood at the sink, trying to piece things together. There'd been signs. I just hadn't wanted to see them. Back in March, I found a perfume bottle in Clara's car that I didn't recognize. She'd laughed it off, said Melissa gave it to her. "Too fancy for me," she said, tossing it in the glove box like it didn't matter. But she kept wearing it for weeks after that. Then in April, I noticed she started keeping her phone face down at dinner. Not always, just sometimes. And when I asked why, she said it was because work was driving her crazy and she didn't want the notifications distracting her. But it wasn't work, not really. The way she'd tense when her phone buzzed, it didn't take a genius to know those weren't Slack messages. And there was that second phone. That was the big one. I found it once in her purse by accident. Thought it was mine at first. It was the same model, same case. But when I picked it up, it lit up with a passcode screen and a wallpaper I didn't recognize. A picture of a beach at sunset. Clara hated the beach. When I asked her about it later, she said it was an old backup phone. For emergencies, she'd claimed. That made sense, I guess. But the next day, it was gone. She never mentioned it again. I told myself not to overthink it. People get weird about privacy. Marriage doesn't mean you have to give up every piece of space. That's what I told myself. But now, with what I heard tonight, I couldn't shake the feeling that all those small, strange details weren't random anymore. They were connected, like breadcrumbs I should have followed months ago. I sat down on the couch and pulled out my phone, searched her name in my email, looked through our shared calendar. Nothing stood out at first. Then I searched for Grayson. A few things popped up, a forwarded itinerary, a dinner reservation in May. Nothing wild, just for two people at a steakhouse downtown. She told me it was a work dinner, logistics team, some supplier they were courting. But Grayson's name was in the confirmation email. She never mentioned him by name. I looked up his profile on her company's website. There he was, Grayson Ellis, operations lead. Tall, clean-cut, charming smile. He looked like the kind of guy who said the right thing at the right time, the kind who knew how to fill in the cracks someone else left behind. I sat there for a long time, staring at his picture, thinking about everything I'd missed. Clara hadn't pulled away all at once. It was slow, like a tide going out. She used to send me pictures of Taylor during the day, silly stuff, like her eating cereal with sunglasses on, or doing her homework upside down on the couch. That stopped about 6 months ago. Now, half the time, I got texts that were short, clipped, or nothing at all. It hit me then. She wasn't just hiding something, she was preparing to leave, and I had no idea how much time I had left. I waited until after midnight to move. Clara was asleep upstairs, or pretending to be. Either way, I didn't want her to hear me. I sat in the office with the door cracked just enough to hear the creak of the stairs if she woke up. My laptop glowed against the dark room, and I started digging. I'd never snooped on Clara before. I'm not that guy. But I also wasn't stupid, not anymore. I opened our shared bank account first. Most of the transactions looked normal: groceries, gas, Amazon. Then I saw a string of Venmo payments from her personal account. They weren't labeled, but the usernames didn't belong to anyone I recognized. One of them had a profile pic that matched Grayson's company headshot. I copied the username and opened his Instagram, public account, rookie mistake. There were travel photos, mostly work stuff, but two stuck out. One from a rooftop bar in Asheville in April, tagged late at night. Another from Charleston 2 months later, in front of a rental car. Both dates lined up with times Clara said she was at regional trainings. I checked the credit card bill next. A charge from a hotel in Asheville, then one in Charleston, both times under Clara's name. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen. My heart wasn't racing. It was quiet inside me, like something had turned off. 12 years of marriage. Gone. Just like that. Not because of one trip, not because of Grayson, but because she'd planned all of this behind my back and expected me never to notice. I clicked through our documents folder. That's when I found the spreadsheet. It was labeled Logistics Plan, Home Transition, buried under other boring-looking files like insurance records and utility info. It wasn't about logistics. It was a moving plan for her. There were dates, tasks, contacts, book storage unit, redirect mail, set up P.O. box, first month deposit, Greystone Lofts. The name stopped me. I Googled it. A luxury apartment complex on the south side, near Grayson's office. 1 bedroom and townhomes. Clara had flagged the 2-bedroom. I went back to the spreadsheet. There were notes about childcare, coordinate pickup with G, Taylor's doctor files, transfer. And then, at the bottom, discuss school withdrawal timing, delay if needed. My hand curled into a fist. She wasn't just sneaking around. She was planning to take our daughter. No discussion, no conversation, just vanish. I clicked over to our joint savings account. She had transferred $3,000 to her personal account the week I left for Dallas, another $2,000 the month before. That was $5,000 I never agreed to move. I opened the folder labeled Receipts. There was a wire transfer confirmation made out to Grayson Ellis, $1,000 even. Reimbursement, trip logistics, the note read. Right. I stared at the screen. The glow of it made the walls look colder. I didn't even feel angry, not the way I thought I would. What I felt was smaller, emptier, like something had just died and I was sitting there staring at its body. I had been stupid, not because I didn't see it coming, but because I gave her every reason to think she'd get away with it. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured a glass of water with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. I looked at the family calendar on the fridge. There were color-coded entries, work trips, dance practices, school events. Everything so neat, so planned. And there, 4 weeks from now, in green marker, beach trip with Clara and Taylor. There wouldn't be a beach trip. There wouldn't be any more pretending, because now I knew the truth. And she had no idea what was coming. By morning, I already knew what I needed to do. I couldn't unsee what I'd found the night before. Couldn't pretend Clara was just going through something, or that this was a rough patch we could talk through. That spreadsheet had told me everything. She was leaving, and she was planning to take Taylor with her. So, I made the call. Lucas picked up on the second ring. "Haven't heard from you in years, man. Everything okay?" "No," I said flatly. "I need your help. Off the record. Private investigator stuff." He didn't ask questions. Lucas used to be a detective. We met in college, and even though we hadn't talked in a while, I knew I could trust him. He was the guy you called when you didn't want to get blindsided in court. "Tell me everything," he said. I told him about the late-night phone call, the spreadsheet, the wire transfers, the fake work trips, everything. He was quiet for a moment. "And you're sure she's planning to disappear?" "She's already halfway gone," I said. "I just don't know when she plans to take Taylor." Lucas didn't waste time. "I'll start digging. I'll need access to anything you can give me. Email, shared files, financial records. I'll find out how far she's gotten with this plan. He paused. You need a lawyer too, not just me. I already have one in mind, I said. By noon, I was sitting across from Maya Bell, the family lawyer I used to do contract work with when I handled vendor disputes for the firm. She specialized in custody cases now. Smart, director, no fluff. I don't usually take cases this messy, she said, after I laid everything out. But if even half of what you're telling me is accurate, we have serious grounds for emergency custody. That's what I want, I said. I want to make sure she can't take Taylor out of state, or out of the house. She opened a folder and clicked her pen. Then we start the paper trail today. I'll file for emergency temporary custody, a financial asset freeze, and a formal investigation into the misuse of marital funds. You'll need to prepare for court within 10 days. I nodded. She's not going to take this lightly, Maya said, especially if she's already laid the groundwork to disappear. You need to understand, this will get ugly. I didn't flinch. It's already ugly. I'm just trying to protect my daughter. Lucas sent me his first report that night. He had pulled Clara's cell records, not the ones on our family plan, but the burner phone she thought I didn't know about. Grayson's number showed up almost every day. Late calls, text threads that went past midnight. He even had screenshots from a shared travel app, hotel bookings in her name, overlapping dates with Grayson's conference schedule. He had also found a rental application under her maiden name. She's serious, Lucas said over the phone. You weren't a backup plan. You were the placeholder. I hung up and walked into Taylor's room. She was asleep, clutching her stuffed turtle, the one Clara bought her at Myrtle Beach last summer. I stood there for a minute, watching her breathe, and made myself a promise. No matter what Clara had planned, I wasn't letting her take our daughter away. The next day, Maya filed the paperwork. I signed everything. Emergency custody request, preliminary injunction, motion to freeze joint assets pending investigation. By Friday, a judge had granted the temporary orders. Clara didn't even know yet, but she would soon, and when she found out, she'd realize the door she thought she could slip through had just slammed shut. I waited until the documents had been served. Maya insisted we do it the right way. No yelling, no surprises, no cornering her in the middle of the night. You want to win in court? She said. Then stay calm. Be the one who played fair. Still, nothing about this felt fair. Clara came home that Sunday morning like it was just another day. Grocery bags in one hand, her keys jangling as she walked through the front door. I was waiting at the dining table, manila folder in front of me. Hey, she said casually, setting the bags on the counter. You're home? I didn't answer right away. I waited until she turned around and saw me sitting there. Her smile faded a little. Everything okay? You've been served, I said. She froze. What? A court notice should have been hand-delivered by now. Emergency custody motion, financial freeze, the works. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I slid the folder across the table. And here's everything I know. She stared at it like it might explode. Andrew, what are you talking about? I didn't flinch. I know about the trips, the hotel bookings, the money transfers, the apartment lease. Grayson. Her jaw twitched. I don't know what you think you found, but... Don't, I said, sharper than I intended. Please don't lie to my face. She swallowed, then slowly sat down across from me. For a moment, she looked less like the woman I married and more like someone trying to figure out which version of herself to be. You've been going through my stuff? She asked quietly. I laughed once. That's what you're mad about? Not the fact that you were planning to disappear with our daughter? She looked down at the folder. Her fingers hovered above it but never touched it. It's not what you think. No? I leaned forward. Then tell me what it is. Because from where I'm sitting, you've been sleeping next to me while planning a whole new life behind my back. Clara closed her eyes. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I waited. She opened her eyes again. Grayson and I, it started as a stupid mistake. One dinner turned into two. It wasn't supposed to be anything serious. But then I started feeling like I was waking up, like I mattered again. So you were just going to vanish with Taylor? I asked. Start over like none of this ever happened? No. Her voice jumped, then softened. I wasn't going to take her forever. Just get some space. Figure things out. You already leased an apartment. You transferred money out of our joint account. You lied about business trips. You knew exactly what you were doing. I was scared, she snapped, then covered her face with her hands. I didn't know how to tell you. You've been distant for months. You're always working. You come home and you're exhausted. We haven't talked in years. I felt the sting, but I didn't let it show. So that makes it okay to blow up our family? No, she whispered, but it's not just me. Now I stood up. Don't put this on me, Clara. I didn't start an affair. I didn't lie to your face. I didn't plan an escape route and call it space. She looked up at me, tears on her cheeks. I just needed something that felt like mine. I stared at her for a long time. You had a family, I said quietly. You had everything, and now you've lost it. Then I picked up the folder, walked out of the room, and left her sitting there in the silence she made. By the time we stood in front of the judge, every line had already been drawn. Maya was sharp and steady beside me, a stack of evidence-filled binders on the table in front of her. Clara sat across the courtroom, flanked by her attorney, a polished man with slicked-back hair and an overly confident smile that rubbed me the wrong way the second I saw it. Clara wouldn't look at me, not once. The judge, a woman in her 60s with wire-frame glasses and a face carved from stone, flipped through the emergency custody petition slowly. The silence in the room stretched. Finally, she looked up. So, let me get this straight. Mrs. Ellis, she paused, glanced at Clara. You were planning to relocate your daughter without notifying your husband? Clara's attorney stood. Your Honor, that's not entirely accurate. My client was exploring options. Nothing was finalized. Maya stood calmly. We have evidence of a signed lease, coordinated child care arrangements with a third party, and financial transactions to an individual involved in the alleged affair, all completed without Mr. Ellis's knowledge. Clara shifted in her chair, her eyes still locked on some fixed point behind the judge. Not on me, not on Taylor. The judge leaned back in her seat. And the child? Where is she currently residing? With her father, Your Honor, Maya answered. In the family home, per the court's temporary order. And the mother has been staying where? Clara's lawyer stepped in again. A short-term rental. She intends to seek equal custody, pending final review. The judge nodded slowly, then turned the page. We had everything, the spreadsheet, the bank records, the emails, and Lucas's full report, including surveillance that showed Clara entering and exiting Grayson's apartment on multiple nights. It was damning. Every attempt she'd made to spin the story as a misunderstanding had already unraveled. After reviewing the materials, the judge looked up again. I'm granting Mr. Ellis temporary full custody, she said plainly, effective immediately. Mrs. Ellis, you are not to remove your daughter from the county until this case is fully resolved. Clara's shoulders sank. She still wouldn't look at me. The judge continued. You may request supervised visitation hours, which this court will review at a later date, assuming full cooperation. But any attempt to disrupt the child's stability from this point forward will be considered a violation of this court's order. Her voice was calm, final, absolute. When the gavel came down, the courtroom let out a quiet breath like it had been holding it for too long. As we exited, Maya leaned toward me. That went as well as we could have hoped. I nodded, but my chest felt heavy. Outside, the air was crisp. Fall was coming fast. I sat in my car, gripping the wheel, trying to slow my thoughts. I'd won, for now. Taylor was safe. Clara couldn't take her and disappear. The law was on my side, but it didn't feel like a victory. This wasn't how families were supposed to fight. I stared out the windshield, watching leaves drift to the pavement. She lied. I fought. Now we were in a courtroom instead of a home. And Taylor, caught in the middle of it all, still didn't know why her mom wasn't allowed to tuck her in tonight. The fallout came faster than I expected. Clara had always been composed. Even during the early court sessions, when the truth started surfacing piece by piece, she carried herself like she still believed she was in control of the narrative. But once the court's temporary custody order was in place, the foundation she'd built started to crack. The first blow came from her job. Lucas had warned me, if Grayson's on the company payroll and there's evidence of inappropriate behavior during work trips, HR won't look the other way. He was right. 2 weeks after the hearing, I got a text from Lucas. Check your email. Thought you'd want to see this. Attached was a forwarded company-wide memo from Clara's employer. It was generic on the surface. Grayson Ellis has been placed on administrative leave pending internal review. But Lucas had sources. Quiet ones. And what they said was clear. An internal ethics investigation had begun. Clara's name wasn't in the memo, but she was already feeling the heat. A few days later, Maya sent me a screenshot of a social media comment thread someone had sent her, co-workers gossiping just vaguely enough to avoid a lawsuit. You think she's still working there after this? Not for long. People are talking. Management knows that HR meeting wasn't just about Grayson. By the end of the month, Clara had been pulled from her big project. She still showed up to the office, from what I heard, but her email signature had changed. No title, no project affiliation, just her name. At home, Taylor was adjusting better than I'd expected. Kids are perceptive. She didn't ask a lot of questions, just enough to let me know she was wondering, why can't I sleep at Mommy's house? I knelt beside her that night, brushing hair from her face. It's not forever, just for now, okay? Grown-up stuff. She looked at me, like she knew I was keeping something from her, but she didn't press. A week later, Clara formally petitioned the court for revised visitation rights. Maya and I met in her office the day the paperwork arrived. She read through it quietly, lips pressed tight, before setting it down on the table. She's asking for overnights. Already? She's desperate, Maya said. But it's not going to fly, not with the evidence, not with what she did. Sure enough, the court denied the motion within days. The judge cited ongoing instability and concerns regarding judgment and conduct. Clara was granted supervised visits every Saturday for 4 hours, with no overnight stays and no out-of-county travel. Just like that, she went from planning a secret move to seeing her daughter under supervision in a glass-walled room, and she hated every second of it. The first supervised visit was awkward. I dropped Taylor off and waited in the car outside the visitation center. When she came back out, she looked confused more than anything. Why did someone sit in the room with us the whole time? They're just making sure everything goes smoothly, I said gently. That's all. She nodded slowly, like she half believed me. That weekend, I got a long, rambling email from Clara. Half apology, half denial. She said she never meant for things to get this bad. Said she missed Taylor. Said she was being painted as someone she wasn't. I didn't reply. Maya told me not to. You're not here to give her closure, she said. You're here to protect your daughter. And that's what I kept doing. While Clara's world slowly unraveled, her job, her reputation, her control, I focused on building one that Taylor could rely on. One where the doors didn't have secrets behind them. One where nobody packed a bag in silence. And one where trust wasn't something you had to double-check. Mornings looked different now. There was no more shuffling around to avoid awkward silence in the kitchen. No more tiptoeing around tension. Just Taylor and me, cereal bowls at the table. Her hair always halfway brushed as she talked about school and her latest obsession with horses. It wasn't perfect. Some days were hard, but the quiet was better than the storm. After everything with Clara, after the hearings, the supervised visits, the emails that felt more like guilt bombs than apologies, I finally let myself breathe. It took a while to feel normal again. At first, I kept expecting the other shoe to drop. Like I'd wake up one morning and the court order would be overturned, or Clara would show up at school trying to take Taylor home. But it never happened. Instead, life settled into a rhythm. Taylor started sleeping through the night again. Her nightmares faded. She stopped asking about Mommy every single day and started asking about horseback riding lessons instead. I couldn't afford them yet, not with the lawyer fees, but I told her we'd figure it out. And I meant it. I found myself smiling more, laughing even. One night after I tucked Taylor in, I got a text from an old friend I hadn't spoken to in months. Ryan, heard what happened. You okay? I stared at the screen for a while before replying. Me, getting there, finally breathing again. He sent back a thumbs up and a beer emoji. The next weekend, we met for a drink. It felt strange being out of the house, not glued to legal documents or worrying about what Clara might do next. But it felt good too, like remembering who I was before I spent so much time being someone else's husband. I started reconnecting with people, friends I hadn't seen since before Taylor was born. I took her to a minor league baseball game, just the two of us, and we stayed out past bedtime eating nachos and cheering like idiots. She fell asleep in the car on the way home, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than loss or anger or betrayal. I felt hope. Maya called one afternoon to update me on Clara's appeal status. She's filed for another revision of the custody order, she said. We'll respond, but the court's still siding with stability. You've got a strong case." I thanked her and hung up, but I didn't let it ruin the day. I took Taylor to the park instead, let her ride her scooter up and down the walking path while I sat on a bench with a coffee in hand. Watching her, I realized something. We were okay. Not perfect, not healed, but okay. The house felt different now, her drawings taped to the fridge, laundry baskets half full with tiny socks and glittery shirts. She started calling the guest room Dad's office and left her homework scattered across the desk. I didn't mind. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, instinctively reaching for the other side of the bed. But instead of feeling empty, I'd remind myself, this wasn't loneliness anymore. It was peace. Clara still had her supervised visits. Sometimes she'd cry in front of Taylor, and sometimes she'd try to whisper little apologies or excuses when the staff wasn't listening. But Taylor always came back the same way, quiet for a while, then full of questions I couldn't always answer. And when she'd ask, "Why can't Mommy live with us again?" I'd say, "Because some grown-ups need time to learn how to take care of what matters." She seemed to understand that better than most adults I knew. I didn't know what the future would look like, but I was learning to take it one day at a time, just me and my daughter, and a life that, for the first time in years, was finally mine again. The courtroom was colder than usual that morning. Maybe it was the nerves, or maybe it was just the way fluorescent lights made everything feel sterile. Either way, I walked in with my tie straight, my jaw tight, and a folder full of evidence that told the story Clara had spent the past 6 months trying to rewrite. She was already there, seated beside her lawyer in a gray blazer that looked one size too big. Her hair was pinned back, face pale. She looked tired, not broken, but close. She didn't look at me when I walked in. The judge, the same one who'd presided over the temporary orders, called us to begin. Maya stood first, confident as always. She laid everything out with precision. The financial records, the surveillance reports, the lease in Clara's maiden name, the burner phone logs, the wire transfers to Grayson. She presented it all without emotion, like reading off a grocery list. Then came the school counselor's letter, a statement detailing how Taylor had adjusted better with a single stable home environment. It mentioned Clara's missed supervised visits, her emotional outbursts during pickups, and Taylor's increased anxiety after each encounter. "She's doing well," Maya said, "because she feels safe." Clara's attorney tried his best. He painted a picture of a mother under stress, manipulated by an office romance that got out of hand. He said Clara had taken steps to repair her relationship with Taylor, had followed all supervised visitation guidelines, and deserved shared custody, at minimum. But the judge didn't look convinced. Then Clara stood. "Your Honor," she began, her voice shaky, "I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt people. I just want to be in my daughter's life." She turned slightly, finally facing me. "I'm sorry, Andrew, for all of it, for what I did, for how I left you out. I didn't know how to ask for what I needed, so I made the worst possible decisions. I didn't move, didn't react," she went on. "I know I don't deserve your trust, but I want to try. I want to be her mom again." The judge was quiet for a long time. Then she flipped through her notes and finally spoke. "This court has reviewed the full body of evidence. Mrs. Ellis, your actions over the last year show not just a lack of judgment, but a sustained effort to destabilize your daughter's life without regard for legal or emotional consequences. The court cannot overlook that." She paused. "Therefore, I'm granting Mr. Ellis full legal and physical custody of Taylor Ellis. Any visitation with Mrs. Ellis will remain supervised until such time that the court deems otherwise." Clara closed her eyes. The judge continued. "Additionally, any further attempt to relocate, remove, or disrupt the child's primary residence without formal court approval will result in immediate sanctions." And just like that, it was done. The gavel dropped. I didn't feel triumphant. There were no smiles, no victory laps, just relief, raw and heavy. Afterward, as we walked out of the courthouse, Maya clapped a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You did it," she said quietly. "It's over." I looked down the steps to where Taylor was waiting, with Lucas outside in the car. I thanked Maya, shook Lucas's hand, and opened the back door. "Hey, Peanut," I said, sliding in next to her. "Is it done?" she asked. "Yeah," I nodded. "We're going home." As we pulled away from the courthouse, I looked at her in the rearview mirror. She was humming to herself, tracing patterns on the fogged-up window with her finger. and I realized I hadn't lost everything. I'd kept the most important thing, and now we could finally start living again.